Well, I'd like to introduce Tom Ziglar to every one of you. Super friend, mentor. He taught me things that I don't know if he taught me, but he sure brought out a piece of me that I wasn't let show a lot of times. Used to be a lot colder. He made me a lot more friendly. He gave me what it takes to help people and help them on their own terms. So with all that, Tom, it's all about you.
Well, Cheryl, Jerry, thanks for having me on. And I've been just been doing. I've done 55 webinars in the last 10 days. So the need for hope and encouragement, the right mindset, the right outlook, some practical things we can all do. Gosh, it's never been stronger than right now, that need. And so what I thought I'd do is just share about 10 or 15 minutes of what our family and what I've spent my whole life doing, which is about hope and encouragement. It's about, what are the things that we can do even in a crisis. And I think we all agree this is like the mother of all crises that we're in right now. So, I mean, it's crazy. So let me do this, if it's okay. I want to share my screen and just kind of go through this, and let me know, Cheryl, if you can see that. Okay.
We're seeing it fine. We're fine, Tom.
Okay, good stuff. And I'm going to open up my chat if my mouse will cooperate. And if anybody is able to chat in and you have questions along the way,
somebody, Cheryl, mute everybody's mic, but Tom.
Frank's trying to come in. Somebody's trying to come in, and I haven't got control of it yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's Frank.
No worries on that. We can, there we go. All right. So let me just jump in. My father was Zig Ziglar, and he really had an impact in terms of let me see if I can find it.
There, we still got a mic cutting in.
I just found him.
Found it. Man, you guys are good at this. I've been monitoring the mics for constantly. All right, so Zig Ziglar was my father, and he wrote 45 books. If you ever heard him speak on stage, maybe the greatest speaker ever took the stage. He's known specifically for his wisdom, his quotes, and positive attitude. But, he came out, he was raised in the Great Depression. He started his first job when he was 6, selling peanuts on the corner. He really went through a lot in his life. And then at the end of his life, when he was 80 years old, and I don't tell this story very often, but when he was 80 years old, he'd come back. He was speaking in Los Angeles, and he'd come home, and he was, mom and dad had gone to bed, and for some reason, dad decided to get up. He goes down the hallway, and instead of turning right, we don't know, he turned left. He hit the first step of the stairs, and he goes tumbling all the way down the stairs. So 16 steps, 2-story house, hits his head on the marble floor, double brain bleed, and loses his short-term memory like almost instantly. I was in Mexico, and I get the call, right? And so we're coming home, trying to get home early, and it's hard. So the second day he's in the hospital, he's in his bed. They've done all the MRIs. He's still got some brain swelling, a little bit of a headache, his short-term memory is not there. And the doctor comes in and says, my sister Julie there, mom's there, Cindy's there. The doctor gives the report, right? And all of that goes by. And then at the end of that, dad looks up at the doctor from his bed, and his head's all bandaged up. And he says, "Doctor, today's Tuesday, right? Because the board on the hospital wall has the date on it." And the doctor said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I'm supposed to speak on Thursday. I need to get out of here. Can you let me out so I can go do this speaking engagement?" And the doctor looks at dad and basically says, "No, you're in serious trouble. And Mr. Ziglar, you need to start thinking about the fact that you'll probably never speak again. You need to be thinking about doing something different. So here's a man who his whole life, 50 plus years, have been speaking, leading and motivating and inspiring others and all that. And a doctor tells him that he's never going to do that again. So dad looks up, doesn't say a word, just smiles. He leaves the room. And then my dad turns to my sister, Julie, and he calls Julie little one. And he says, little one, I've still got something to say. So we're just going to have to figure out another way to do it. And so what happened at that point is that was the genesis of Julie and dad now traveling for the next 4.5 years over 100 different events where they did an interview format, because dad couldn't speak like he did before, but he could communicate. He knew all the stories, people knew his heart, and he impacted thousands and thousands of people in that process because of the transparency. And the reason I say that is because that was a black swan. I mean, the thing is we're in the middle of a black swan event right now, right? It's a game changer. It's changing our personal lives, our business, but yet in the middle of the black swan, looking up from a hospital bed, dad was undeterred because, let me ask this question. And if you're able to type it in, type it in. Did he make that response while he was on the hospital bed, or did he have 5 decades of training his mind of what he was going to do? Was that like an instantaneous answer, or had he been preparing his whole life for circumstances beyond his control? Yeah, that was it. I mean, he was living out everything that he'd read, everything he believed, everything he taught. And because of that, yeah, that's right, Tim, 5 decades. Okay, so here's the thing, is I want to talk to you about the stronger mindset and about how I believe right now. Here's the thing. I'm telling, just like the group that you're in, we coach hundreds and hundreds of business owners. And what I'm telling them, and these are all sizes, anywhere from solopreneur to large organization, is we're telling everyone, look, we're going to get this through this together. We're going to come out of it. And here's the reality. It's not going to be better. It's not going to be worse. It's going to be different. Right? I mean, can you see all the things that are changing? I mean, I was talking to a friend. There's a lot of people over 60 years old who, until recently, never ordered anything on a mobile app. And now, guess what they all know how to do? They know how to go grocery shopping on their phone. I mean, it's like Amazon, in a weird sort of way, just compressed 10 years of, client acquisition into 2 weeks, because they trained a whole generation who was smartphone resistant to shopping. So this we do know, it's going to be different. And so how do we, in the middle of this, how do we create a mindset, an attitude that allows us to emerge stronger, right? Because the reality is this: life is going to go on. We're going to get through this. It's probably going to take longer than we want it to. There's going to be some things that are going to change in the process, but we're coming out. I mean, the reality is we're coming out. We win every time. There's something about the backbone of this country, and that is small business owners, people who wake up every day saying, if it's going to be, it's up to me, right? It's up to me. There's something about the people in a group just like this, where they get knocked down, they get that look on their face, and they say, you know what, this really sucks, but I'm going to win anyway. I'm going to get through it. I'm going to go through it. And so what I'm talking about now is that attitude. And so I was thinking, okay, if I looked at all of the quotes that Dad had in his life, what's the one that applies to this situation right now? And here it is: expect the best, prepare for the worst, maximize what comes. So what does that mean? Well, here's the reality. We have to go out every day expecting the best. We've got to adopt the attitude of gratitude, courageous, contagious hope and encouragement. We got to put the good stuff in our mind. We got to listen to the things that lift us up. We've got to expect the best from our family, our friends, our teammates, our coworkers, our customers. And we've got to bring that little thing in our voice that says, hey, you know what? We're in it together. We're going to get through it. Don't worry, I'll be there. Hey, it's a strange time right now. It's crazy. What can I do? When we expect the best, when we put the right things in our mind, this is what happens. It lifts our spirit. I mean, I'll just be point blank. When you read good stuff, listen to good information, have good, solid, positive conversations, not focused on what you can't do, but on what you can do, that gets the heart going. That lifts the spirit. And let me tell you this, when you lift the spirit, scientifically, medically, we know this, it boosts your immune system. And if we need anything right now, we need a strong immune system, right? And then when you encourage someone else, whether it's a friend, a family member, a client, a customer, whoever it is, when they hear that smile of steely determination, when they hear that hope and encouragement, when they hear you say, hey, how's it going? I was thinking about you. You okay? Great. I just want you to know I'm here for you. We're going to get through this together. When they hear that, it lifts their spirits. And guess what that does? That boosts their immune system. So this mindset, the stronger mindset, there is no downside. There's only upside, because everything I'm talking to you about is upside. Dad said this. He said, a positive attitude won't let you do anything, but it will let you do everything better than a negative attitude. Right on? I mean, that's just the reality. If we want to go out and have the best chance possible, it only makes sense to have the best positive attitude we can. And then we got to prepare for the worst. Well, wait, how do those two things go hand in hand? Expect the best, prepare for the worst. Hey, we got to look at reality. This might take a little longer than we want it to. So how do we prepare for the worst? Well, the first thing is we got to take care of ourselves physically, mentally, and spiritually. That's right. We got to exercise. We got to eat right. We got to get 8 hours of sleep. We got to get the nutrition in. We've got to build ourselves up. When we do this physically, it does something to our immune system. It builds it up, but it also creates margin. And right now, we got to have margin, right? We got to have margin. We've got to have breathing room. We've got to have space. We got to look at our business and our personal life and all the things around us. And we got to look 3, 4, 5, 6 months into the future, longer than we want to look, but we got to look and we got to envision, what if it takes longer? What have I got to do? Hey, I got to go stock the kitchen. I got to wash my hands 20 seconds a day, at a time, 20 times a day. One of my clients is an HVAC. You know what they're doing every day? They're putting booties on and masks on and hazmat, and they don't touch anything in the house. And they FaceTime their clients while they're walking through, right? Their clients go back in the back room. If they touch something, they wipe it down. I mean, they're doing every precaution they can, because what are they doing? They're preparing for the worst. Not that it's going to happen, but that they have the margin when it does happen. So when you prepare for the worst, it allows you the third piece, which is maximize what comes. And this is where the win is. It's a delayed win, but this is where the win is. You've probably already had the 2 a.m. text message, or the middle of the night phone call, or the direct message on social media that said, hey, I'm scared, I'm lonely, I don't know what's going on, I can't make payroll, I'm not sure what's going to happen next week, much less next month. What do I do? Right? If you have margin in your life, if you have this great attitude of the expect the best attitude, if you've created, you're exercising, you're eating, you're getting enough sleep, you're looking in the future, that gives you margin. So what do you do when that friend or that coworker or that customer sends that message to you? You reach out to them. You say, hey, Cheryl, I'm on your side. I'm here for you. Jerry, what's going on? How can I help? Tell me about it. And you give them all your ears and all your eyes, and you just listen. You just listen. And then when you listen, you say, man, I understand. You know what? We've been in some tough jams before. This country, the people in this country that I know, that I love, that I'm proud to stand next to, I know them. We're going to get through this together. Hey, you know what? If it goes lower, guess what? We're in it together. When it starts to turn, guess what? We're in it together. How can I help you right now? And then you maximize what comes. You give them a little bit extra. So what does that mean? The next day, a few days later, you send them a note, you call them up, you text them, you say, hey, I was thinking about our conversation. I just want you to know I'm on your side. We got this together. Whatever you need, let me know. And then on our business, the business is the same thing. A customer calls up and they tell you point blank, I got problems 10 feet deep. I don't know what to do. What do? You roll up your sleeves and you dig in and you say, hey, let me help. How can I help you solve those problems? Right? You do what you can. And then you go a little bit extra. How do you do that? You give them a text or a phone call the next day or a few days later. And you say, hey, I was thinking about it. How are you doing? Anything else I can do? What's going on? I care about you. You know, we've been around the block together. I want to keep doing that. Right? We're going to get through this. So how do you maximize what comes? That's the how, but how are you able to? Because you have the right attitude, right? I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying we got to fill it up on purpose. And then we prepared for the worst. We're getting enough sleep. We're exercising. We've got to have the capacity to do it. So one of my mentors, his name is Rabbi Daniel Lapin. And he says this, he's a good friend. He says, God is never happier with his children than when they're solving the problems of his other children. Think about that. That's a big thing right there. In the military language, when we get surrounded by the enemy, it means we can attack in any direction. Okay? Don't you feel like that? We're surrounded? How about this? Another military, like if problems are our enemy, we're in a target-rich environment right now. Right? I mean, no matter where we turn, there's problems. Well, guess what makes the creator of this universe happy? When we figure out how we can solve the problems of his other kids. I mean, that's really what it's about right now. And a lot of times, the way we solve problems right now is just listening, just caring. And so what do we got to do? What's the fuel that we need right now? Here it is. When we choose the right input, we have taken the most important step we can take in determining the right outcome. I want to just kind of, I almost use the word beseech, it almost sounds like we're preaching here, but you've got to be really careful on the amount of negative input we get, because all you got to do is turn on the TV, the radio, social media, and you hear it nonstop, right? How many cases? How many people? What's the death toll in Italy? How, are we at max curve yet? What's the next step? And then our fearless leaders, it's like, they don't care about us. They care about winning between each other. I don't get it. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. I don't get it. We've got problems to solve. We've got people to serve. And so what we got to do is we got to choose what we listen to, what we read, who we associate with, the good, the clean, the pure, the powerful, and the positive. So that's the stronger mindset, okay? It's so powerful that we understand, we expect the best, we prepare for the worst, we maximize what comes. But there's another factor here. Our families depend on it. Legacy is intentionally preparing those you love to grow through life's most difficult challenges. Think about that. As parents, as aunts and uncles, and we have people who look up to us, our younger teammates, employees, they look up to us. And they're looking up and they're saying, how are they handling it, right? Are they walking through with steely determination and grit, being truthful and honest and loving and kind at the same time? Guys, everybody knows we're in it. I mean, nobody's surprised when we deliver bad news. It's how we deliver it. It's the relationship that matters. So when they see that little smile that sets everything straight, right? That little curve, that's a smile that sets everything straight. And they see that look in our eyes that says, you know what? Bring it. I got more than this. I can go because I'm expecting the best. I'm preparing for the worst. I'm maximizing what comes. Our family, our kids are looking at this. And I want to tell you a story. Tom Brokaw said in a book, he said that the greatest generation this country ever had was the men and women who fought in World War II. I mean, think about it. It's in all the history books. The war started. We were unprepared. We didn't have resources. We didn't have equipment. Our Army, our Navy, our Air Force was untrained, taken by surprise. And then we go into battle against battle-hardened, superior armies and generals and forces. They've been fighting for a while. And yet, a few years later, we win. And then these men and women come home and the greatest economic boom in the history of civilization happens. Yeah, they were the greatest generation. Or were they? My friend Andy Andrews, he said, Tom, they weren't the greatest generation. Their parents were. You see, the parents raised those men and women during the Great Depression. They worked from sun up to sundown. They didn't have any stuff. All they had was each other, discipline, hard work, principles, and values. You see, the greatest generation was the generation that raised the men and women who fought in World War II. This is what I believe. I believe that people just like me, just like you, are standing up right now. And our kids and those who look up to us for leadership and direction, they're watching our eyes and our face and our determination and our gait and our spirit and our tone. And how we lead them, I believe that we have the opportunity to raise up the greatest generation this country has ever had. I'm here to tell you that snowflakes are melting left and right now, and they are being hardened into people who can withstand the furnace, not because they wanted to, but because the furnace does something pretty cool. It burns away the things that don't matter. So we know medically, scientifically, and family-wise, this is the right approach, right? But what else? There's another word I want to give you. It's called anti-fragile. Great book, Nassim Taleb. Anti-fragile means pretty much the same as stronger. So what is anti-fragile? Well, it's hard to explain. It's easier to explain the opposite. Yeah. What is fragile? Fragile is weak. It's easily broken or destroyed. We don't want to be fragile, right? We don't want to be weak or easily broken. Yeah. Tim's a right on, like muscles in the gym. It's like you've seen one of my slides that's coming up. We want to be the opposite of fragile or weak. We want to be strong, robust, resilient, gritty, determined. But you see, those are all great things because they'll get us through the storm. But we don't want to do just getting through the storm, do we? We want to be anti-fragile. We want to increase in our capacity as a result of the stressors, the shocks, the noise, the mistakes, the faults, or the attacks. That's right. Stronger, anti-fragile means simply this, that the more that comes against us, the stronger we get. It's the way we're created. I mean, look at this. Biologically, God created us. He said, look, if you want to build stronger muscles, you lift weights, you tear those muscles down, and then they come back what? Stronger. And women, you reach the age of menopause, you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, hey, we don't want you to get osteoporosis. You need to start lifting weights because the stress, the pressure, the weight will make your bones what? Stronger. Yeah. This is where we rise up as a group, as business owners. We start making decisions and we set our face and we say, you know what, we're going to get through this together. But it goes even deeper than this. I mean, now we've got science, we've got medicine, we've got family, we've got biology, but I want to go spiritual. Look at this. This is my dad's life verse, Romans 8:28. God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God. Look at that. Wait a second. I don't like this situation we're in. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. And yet I believe and I know that God's going to cause this to work together for good. Does that sound like expect the best? And then when I was a kid, some person much wiser than me, I was 12 years old, they said, Tom, you need to pick a life verse. So I picked James 1, 2, and 3. I can't believe I picked this verse. When I was 12 years old, I'd never had a trial in my life. A trial was going to Luby's cafeteria and deciding what dessert to eat. I mean, that's about as hard as I had it. And yet I picked this verse. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces what? Endurance. So you take those two verses and you combine them. Hey, I should be joyful. I should be excited because the trial, the furnace, is going to make me what? Stronger. And then we look at this. This is a different version. It's a sheer gift. Are you looking at this situation as a sheer gift? You know what? Our mindset, we can flip it. We can say, all of a sudden, I've got time to build every family relationship I have. All of a sudden, I've got time to take better care of my physical, mental, and spiritual self. All of a sudden, I've got time to innovate, to plan the next thing, to understand and to put myself into the future of how the world's going to change. And look at this. attacked from all sides. That's the way I feel. And then the last piece there, you know that under pressure, your faith life is forced out into the open and its true colors show. Listen, when people see you under pressure, just like a little candle in a dark room, you can light the whole room with how you respond. The reality is people are looking to us to lead in our own home, in our own business, in our own community. We lead from the inside out. And if we choose the stronger mindset, there is no downside. And then I love John 16:33, because there's two promises here. The first one I don't like. In this world, you will have trouble. That's like a guarantee. It's here with a capital T. But take heart, for I have overcome the world. We win. That's the awesome news. That's the great news. We win. So I'll just wrap up with this. So what do we do? You know, as leaders, as business owners, what do we do? I think right now is a perfect time to reach out to as many of our customers, our acquaintances, people in our network, and just find out what's going on. How can I help? And as you start to hear their problems and challenges, you'll start to see consistency. And guess what happens with problems? My Uncle Bernie, who Dad's best friend, he came to my niece Catherine's wedding like 10 years ago. Uncle Bernie's like unbelievably wealthy. And I said, Uncle Bernie, what's the secret to your wealth? And he looked at me and he calls me Slug. And he calls me Slug not because I'm a slug, but because when I was a baby, I had a baseball cap on and it said Slugger on it. Okay, so he calls me Slug for Slugger. He says, Slug, when I see a problem, I run to it. Because where there's problems, there's money. Right now, it's the same deal. It's a little bit different timing wise. We're going to run to a lot of problems right now because we love and care for those we do life with, right? We want to be there to help. But the relationships that we forge and the understanding that we get of the needs that people have and how they want us to serve them, that's where the opportunity is. All right, I'm going to stop share and just open it up for questions. So I hope I didn't go and blow too hard. I get kind of excited about that. Whoop.
Anybody got any questions? Jerry, you're muted.
Tom, could you put the slide back up that gives the definition of anti-fragile? I thought that was a really unique and interesting concept.
Sure. Oh, and while I'm doing that, let me say this. I'm going to type it in the, and Cheryl, you have it too, so you can even send it out. But I wrote an ebook where all of this is in it. You can get it at Ziglar.com/stronger. It's free.
Actually, it's on the mastermind group. Everybody has a copy.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So I'll turn that screen back on. And let's see.
Yeah, while he's finding that, like I said, Tom has done this from his friendship with Cheryl and spoken to y'all tonight. So if you have any questions for him, like I said, Tom is the son of Zig Ziglar. If you can imagine what that was like being raised by someone like that and the childhood that he went through and what he learned. So this might be a unique opportunity for those of you that have never met Tom or heard him speak. If you'd like to ask a question, Tom is one of the most giving people that we know. So if you have any questions, just turn your mic on. Feel free to ask them.
Hey, Tom, that was awesome. And I'm taking notes as you're talking. I love that slide about when you choose the right input, that's the most important step in determining the outcome. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? I mean, like where we are right now, it's true. Like we're surrounded by media outlets that make money on pessimism. We're surrounded by a lot of fear mongering on both sides of the political aisle. And can you speak a little bit more to having the right input to set you up to win?
Yeah. So the reality is no action happens without a prior thought initiating it. Right? I mean, that's just the reality. And so our thoughts come from the input, what we've listened to, what we read, the influences we've had in our life. That all adds up to create our thoughts. Now, this is a very interesting thing, and I want to give you 3 points on this. There's 3 things that we've got to do. And this is whether you're a believer or not, there are 3 things that we got to do. First is we choose our input. When we choose the right material, well, the things that lift us up, the things that are true, what's right, it's what's true, okay? It's what allows us to do better. It allows us to go forward. And so our life, probably just in an average day, 90% is negative. I mean, it's just the way the world comes at us, right? Maybe it's 70% negative and 20% neutral, but it's not mostly positive. And right now, I guarantee you, it's way over 90% negative. And that's because that's what moves us. We react to it. Do you think if only good news, if that got the ratings, do you think that's not what we would get on the TV? We'd be getting all the good stories, right? We'd be hearing about all the people who recovered and all the people who have tried this new protocol and all the people who are maintaining their health doing certain things. We'd be hearing about that constantly, but that's not the way it is. So the first thing is we got to choose our input. What we input into our mind determines our thinking. Our thinking, our beliefs, our actions, and our actions get our results. Number 2 is we've got to guard our minds against the negative. So we choose the good and we guard against the negative. So what's negative? When somebody says you're no good, that's not true, right? So how do we know what's not true? We got to guard our minds against the not true. If it disagrees with God's word, it's not true. That's where I come down, okay? And so I speak life and hope into people all the time because I see potential in every person that's in the room. I don't care what their background is. I see who God created them to be. And so my responsibility is to speak that. But the reality is we get negative and non-truth spoken into us all the time. And then the third one is this. We have to train our mind. If you want to go deeper on this, there's a doctor. Her name is Dr. Carolyn Leaf. And she's a neuroscientist, psychologist, done tons of work with MRIs and brain scans. We know this for a fact. We are all, every single one of us, everybody on this call, we're all neuroplasticians. We're all neurosurgeons. We can literally grab a hold of a negative thought and dwell on it over and over and over again and talk about it and research it. And it will, by an MRI, it will make brain damage in our brain. It will shut our brain down. It will inhibit it. It will create all kinds of negative symptoms. But guess what we can also do? We can grab a hold of a positive thought or idea, and we can meditate on it, and we can grow it, and we can develop it, and we can reclaim that part of the brain that we have, right? It's amazing. And this isn't like pie in the sky stuff. This is medical science. Did you know, has anybody here heard of post-traumatic growth? Has anybody heard of that?
That's a new one, Tom.
I don't see anybody here saying they've heard of it, but listen to this. We all know what PTSD is, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder, right? I mean, that's when we see some sort of trauma, either physical or emotional, and it debilitates, right? The symptoms are real. It causes all kinds of issues. Did you know that some people have post-traumatic growth? In other words, they have the same trauma, the same life-changing experience, that except for they reframe it into their mind and they recreate it, and it becomes a growth thing. You see, some people are like, that almost killed me. I'm never doing that again. I'm fragile. You know what? Life's hard. It's tough. Somebody else, nothing can kill me now. Look at what just happened. I'll get over this. And we've got a real decision in our head. We've got a choice to make on it. So when the whole country's been through a trauma, okay, I'm just telling you right now, the dad coined this. He says, you got to be before you can do, and you got to do before you can have. What does that mean? It means you got to be the right kind of person, do the right things, and then you can have all that life has to offer. The problem is people put all of their identity into what they do and what they have. Their job and their stuff. That's who I am. Just ask anybody on the street. Hey, tell me about yourself. Oh, well, you know, I'm doing this. And then before that, I did this. And before that, I did this. And well, tell me more about you. Well, I like to water ski and I go hunting on the weekends. And yeah, I'm going to, you know, as soon as all this mess clears, I've got my eye on a new rifle, blah, 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 right? So they're telling you what they do and what they have and what they want. They're not telling you who they are. Well, this event that's going on right now, the onion's being peeled back. The stuff is going away. You know, what we have, we a lot of people, me included, in jeopardy of losing some of it. And what we do, hey, we're a training company. We do live training all the time. People come to our headquarters and go through it. How many people are getting on airplanes right now to come see us at Ziglar? If they did, they'd be stupid. I'm just telling you, our world's changed. Your world's changed. So what do? You flip it. You say, you know what? I've been doing webinars for years. I do hundreds of webinars a year. Nothing like the last 2 weeks. Why is everybody calling me right now? Because they need what we have more than ever. So if they need what we have more than ever, it's my job to figure out, okay, how and when. Because the way we did it before is probably not working the same way for a while. So that idea of, man, people, we've got to control our input. We've got to guard against the wrong. We've got to train our mind. We are all neuroplasticians. And then we got to realize the situation our customers are in. They're scared just like we are. And that's why when we bring that expect the best, we can fortify a relationship that changes everything. I got on a roll. I don't even know if I answered your question.
Anyone else have a question for Tom? Like I said, Tom's a unique individual. Feel free. This is an opportunity that's hard to come by, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have a question, feel free to ask it.
So Tom, what would you say, so I have 2 teenagers and they're having a really terrible time dealing with just the isolation of all this. They're almost 14 and 16, and so they're just having a really tough time. I think they're tired of me saying, look, you're not Anne Frank, you're not living under, you know, living in seclusion in an attic or anywhere, you're not in a concentration camp, you're not in World War II. I think they're tired of me just telling them how lucky they are. What advice would you give me to say to them to give them some hope? Okay,
so for that age group especially, this is kind of a cool thing. You know, Dad said this. It's not negative to identify a problem. Okay, it's actually positive to identify a problem. That's a good thing. How are we going to own and solve a problem if we don't even identify it? It only becomes negative if you focus on the problem and not the solution. So, you know, there's another quote that says, logic will not change an emotion, but action will. So we got to take action on something. And so as you talk with them, well, what's the problem? You know, what is it that, you know, are you frustrated? Are you fearful? What's next? Okay, what's the solution? And I would just hammer in on the solutions. Well, it starts with our thinking. What can we read? What can we learn? How can we grow? And then I would go to the next one, and that is, who can we help? I mean, one of the things that I got a video, probably some of y'all have seen it, where like this whole country, they started making handmade masks. The whole country, they're like sewing and knitting and going nuts, and they've got all these decorative masks, and the people who are making them are giving them away to the people who can't. And are they the best, R95 or whatever filtered mask? No, they're not. But the reality is they're all of a sudden together focusing on something they can do. My sister is a senior citizen, Cindy. Cheryl, don't tell Cindy I said this. So she didn't have any masks. Well, there was a group in her area that delivered 10 masks to anybody over 65 who wanted one. There are all kinds of little projects that we who have a little bit more can do to help others. And kids are the best at dreaming that up and thinking about it. Develop an online, maybe they become peer mentors of their own age group. We train people as young as 16 in leading our material. They can talk to their friends. And this is kind of an interesting thing because this is just an observation. If any of you have a photo album, like an old-fashioned photo album, that's like older than say 10 to 12 years old, and you have kids in there, look at the girls in that album that are in that 12 to 16 range, just being girls. Most of the pictures won't have any makeup on it. But now, do you ever see a 12 to 16-year-old girl without makeup? And the reason is because they've got to be selfie ready, right? They feel this unbelievable pressure to put on a mask for the world, and to me it makes no sense, right? And so what's happening right now is all those masks are being burned out of this furnace. The things that really matter are coming in. And so tell your kids more than you've ever told them, I love you, I'm proud of you. Dad always said that to us. He always put those two things together. I love you and I'm proud of you. And when we said, well, I don't know what to do, I'm bored, it was always, well, what do you think you should do? And made us think, right? And by the way, this is good for me and you too. I mean, there is no age limit on this advice. But if we get problem focused, man, it's going to be horrible. We're going to go down a hole and not get out. If we get solution focused, if we start figuring out how we can lighten the load for somebody else, then that's a huge difference.
Randy, does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else have a question for Tom? Tom, I want to thank you very, very much. I think you've given some people some good thoughts. This is what we have to use to lead our families, to lead our employees, because just like we said, they've all got fear. This is why I've been encouraging everybody to meet with your employees, have these meetings, reassure them they're going through some of the worst times in their lives. The unemployment is low. We have overloaded our government with the systems cannot handle. They've been plainly overwhelmed. Nobody had anything like this. The software can't handle it. The banks are overloaded. The amount that's happening, I compared it to several of you this week. It would be very similar to someone calling you one day in October and said, I need 1,000 people called you today and said, I need my chimney swept tomorrow. You couldn't handle the phone calls. You couldn't process the information. We would never be able to handle it. And that's what we're seeing right now. And that's where we've got to give our people this leadership. So Tom, I'm going to welcome you to stay through this. I'm going to go through a little exercise with everybody. If you want to stay with us, you're welcome to. But I want to thank you very much for giving us your time tonight.
Thank you. I'm going to have to run, but you guys are awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Appreciate it.